Hello students, we are back again on your favorite learning platform, Learn Forward by Feathercam. Today we are going to study chapter number 5, Struggling Against Dual Operation, Colonial Masters and the Local Lords. So let's get started. Now in this chapter, let's understand through a poem which is written here, which is A Dance for Freedom. In India's tale of brave and bold, stories of freedom forever told. A dance of heroes, a song so clear, whispers of courage we all can hear. In Maharashtra land, Tilak spoke true, Swaraj, self-rule in the air it flew. Home rule movement, a powerful stand against the British hand in hand. Gandhi, the guide with peaceful mind, march in Gujarat, shining so bright. Salt March, Dandi March, steps so free, Sabarmati Ashram, where dreams could be. Bengal's heart so wise and grand, boasts Ghosh Tagore as united brand. Partition Spain, Swadeshi flame, protesting the British not in their name. Punjabi's hero Ryan Singh, Jallianwala Spain, freedom sting. Protests surged like a river flow in Punjab's field freedom would grow. Tamil Nadu's breeze, a freedom song, Raja Gopal Chari, Periyar strong, non-cooperation, quit India plea, Tamil's heart, beating for liberty, Andhra, Karnataka, Kerala's grace. Each state adds to the freedom embrace, heroes rising, stories to tell, and freedom stars they all excel. So if we talk about this beautiful poem, we'll come to know it is not only one state, not only one person hankering for freedom, it was an entire nation who had a poncho for freedom, who had a craving for freedom, and they all fought together and got it. Now, Indian national movement, which aimed at India's freedom from British rule, was like a colorful and diverse story with different chapters across various states of the country. So it was exactly like everybody had a different story, but everybody was hankering or craving for freedom. Right. This important part of India's history took place from late 1800 to 1947. The Indian national movement happened in many places. Each had a special way of fighting against British rulers. People not only opposed the British, सिर्फ Britishers को oppose नहीं किया था, but उन लोगों को भी oppose किया था जो Britishers का साथ दे रहे थे. Example चौरी चौरा जो हुआ था उत्तर प्रदेश में, लोगों को गुस्सा आ गया, वो भड़क गए, उन्होंने एक पुलिस स्टेशन को जला दिया और जो तरीका गांधी जी यूज कर रहे थे उसको अपोज किया. राइट. बलिया में 1942 में जब क्विट इंडिया मूवमेंट हुआ, लोगों ने सिर्फ ब्रिटिशर्स के अगेंस्ट नहीं खड़े हुए, वो उन लोगों के अगेंस्ट भी खड़े हुए जो ब्रिटिशर्स को लोकली सपोर्ट करे थे. उनका सिर्फ एम था कि यहाँ से इंडिया से ब्रिटिशर्स को निकाल दिया जाए और जो उनको सपोर्ट करे उनको भी दबा दिया जाए. फार्मर्स ने बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले किया था इस मूवमेंट में. जैसे किसान मूवमेंट हुए, फार्मर्स अलग अलग जगह से प्रोटेस्ट करना शुरू हुए. उन्होंने उन लोगों के जो उनसे लोग टैक्स ज़्यादा लेते थे उन्हीं को मजदूर बना के रखते थे. सो इट वॉजंट जस्ट अबाउट गेटिंग रिड ऑफ द ब्रिटिश बट ऑल्सो अबाउट फिक्सिंग प्रॉब्लम्स विद लोकल लैंडलॉर्ड्स एंड अनफेयर फार्मिंग प्रैक्टिसेस. सो इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट क्या था? एक वेव था, एक बिग स्टोरी थी जिसके डिफरेंट चैप्टर्स थे डिफरेंट प्लेसेस में, वेयर पीपल फॉट अगेंस्ट द ब्रिटिश एंड समटाइम्स इवन अगेंस्ट दोज हु वर क्लोज टू देम. नाउ असर्शंस अगेंस्ट कॉलोनियल एंड लोकल रूलर्स. तो असर्शन जो मूवमेंट हुआ था वो ब्रिटिशर्स के अलावा लोकल रूलर्स जो उनको हेल्प कर रहे थे उनके भी अगेंस्ट थे. जब इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट हुआ, जो स्ट्रगल था इंडिपेंडेंस में, वो सिर्फ एक जगह के लिए लिमिटेड नहीं था, वो ब्रिटिशर्स को हटाने के लिए तो था, बिकॉज मेनली तो ब्रिटिश डोमिनेशन से बाहर आना था. उसके अलावा जो लोग ब्रिटिशर्स को सपोर्ट करते थे उन लोगों के से भी बाहर आना था, टू हैव अ लार्जर मूवमेंट फॉर सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट जस्टिस एंड फ्रीडम. बिकॉज लोगों को लगता था हम अपने कंट्री में रह के हमारी अपनी कोई से नहीं है. लोग बहुत परेशान थे ऑप्रेसिव पॉलिसीज को लेके. जो कॉलोनियल एंड लोकल रूलर्स थे ना, वो उन पॉलिसीज को इम्प्लीमेंट करते थे जो कि बहुत एक्सप्लॉइटेटिव थी और ऑप्रेसिव थी. जो ब्रिटिश कॉलोनियल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन था, ये बहुत हैवी टैक्स इम्पोज करते थे, लैंड टैक्सेस, लैंड रेवेन्यूज, इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसीज जो होती थी जो इंडियन पॉपुलेशन को सुपर बर्डन कर रही थी, जिसकी वजह से बहुत सारी गरीबी थी, बहुत सारी हार्डशिप थी, बहुत सारी स्ट्रगल थी. तो लोकल इंडियन रूलर्स जो थे उनके ऊपर बहुत सारे टैक्स लगा देते थे और उनको बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सप्लॉइट करते थे, जिसकी वजह से बहुत डिससैटिस्फैक्शन था, बहुत डिसकंटेंट था, रिसेंटमेंट था लोगों के अंदर. उसके अलावा इकोनॉमिकली बहुत नुकसान हो रहा था, बिकॉज हमारे नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज को एक्सप्लॉइट किया जा रहा था. ब्रिटिश जो है वो इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसीज ऐसे बना रहे थे कि वो ब्रिटिश इंडस्ट्रीज को तो फेवर कर रही थी, बट हमारी कंट्री को वो एक्सप्लॉइट कर रहे थे. हमारे यहाँ से ही सारा मटेरियल लेते थे और उसको लेके वो प्रोसेस करके यहाँ ही लाके एक्सपेंसिव रेट्स पे, इन एग्जॉर्बिटेंट रेट्स पे बेचते थे, which made our country suffer a lot. So there was a lot of exploitation, then lack of representation. Nobody had a say, nobody had a say in decision making process. जो ब्रिटिशर्स थे उसमें बहुत कम इंडियंस थे जो पॉलिसी मेकिंग में काम करते थे। प्रिंसली स्टेट्स में जो लेवल ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटेशन था, पार्टिसिपेशन था, वेरी करता था, और वो भी सब ब्रिटिशर्स का ही फायदा देखते थे। तो ये एक मेजर प्रॉब्लम था। उसके अलावा लोग चाहते थे कि हमारी एक सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट हो, इंडिपेंडेंस मिले, इस करके इंडिया फॉरेन डोमिनेशन से बाहर आना चाहता था, कंट्रोल चाहता था अपने लैंड के ऊपर, अपने रिसोर्सेज के ऊपर, और चाहता था कि ब्रिटिशर्स यहाँ से चले जाएं और एक डेमोक्रेटिक राज्य डेवलप हो इंडिया के लिए। अब ये लोग सब अलग अलग जगह बैठे थे, पर ये जो स्ट्रगल थी एक यूनाइटेड स्ट्रगल थी, क्योंकि जो असर्शंस हो रहे थे, चाहे वो कॉलोनियल हो चाहे लोकल हो, इसके अंदर एक सेंस ऑफ यूनिटी दिख रही थी इंडिया के अंदर जब फ्रीडम नहीं हुआ था। वाइल द इश्यूज फेस बाय डिफरेंट रीजन्स माइट हैव इट, इसमें रीजंस हुए अलग अलग थे हर जगह के, पर जो अंडरलाइन गोल था वो सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट्स का था और इंडिपेंडेंस का था, जिसकी वजह जो लोग थे वो सारे इकट्ठे होके वही काम कर रहे थे कि यहाँ से ब्रिटिशर्स निकल जाएं। ओवरऑल जो इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट था ये कॉम्प्लेक्स और मल्टीफेस स्ट्रगल था, जिसके अंदर बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम्स भी आए, बहुत सारे स्ट्रगल भी थी, बट एक ये मूवमेंट जो था एक एस्पिरेशन था कि फ्री और इंडिपेंडेंट इंडिया हो, जहाँ जस्टिस हो, इक्वालिटी हो, सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट हो, और लोग जो है एक एक अपनी से पा पाए, उनका एक अपनी गवर्नमेंट बॉडी ऐसे जिसमें एवरीबडी had their say. So during the Indian national movement, the spirit of unity against both colonial and local was extended to unique form of protest. One remarkable example is Bardoli Satyagraha, 1928 in Rajasthan, led by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. This movement was a response to oppressive policy by local ruler, the Maharaja of Bardoli. तो local ruler था महाराजा, उसके against था. The peasants of Bardoli protested against the unjust tax hike imposed by Maharaja, showcasing that the fight for justice and freedom was not confined to British rule alone but extended to challenging injustice perpetuated by local leaders. तो उन्होंने कहा ये ब्रिटिशर्स ही नहीं खाली हमारे ऊपर ना प्रॉब्लम डाल रहे हैं, ये जो लोकल रूलर्स हैं वो भी हमें दबा रहे हैं, एक्सप्लॉइट कर रहे हैं। तो उसकी वजह से जो एक बरदौली में सरदार पटेल ने हेल्प किया था, उनकी लीडरशिप में बरदौली में एक आपका मूवमेंट हुआ था, इसके वजह से लोगों के अंदर और यूनिटी आई थी, एंड दे वर एबल टू स्ट्रगल बेटर। Now, how were the session different from the Indian national movement? इनका नेचर क्या था? जो इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट था, इनका मेन एम था इंडिपेंडेंस गेन करना, किसके अगेंस्ट? ब्रिटिश के अगेंस्ट, और एक यूनिफाइड और पैन इंडिया स्ट्रगल था। इसके अंदर लार्ज स्केल मास मूवमेंट हुए थे, सिविल डिसोबीडियंस मूवमेंट था, नॉन कॉपरेशन मूवमेंट हुआ था, नेशन वाइड प्रोटेस्ट हुए थे कि ब्रिटिश को चैलेंज करने, उनकी अथॉरिटी को चैलेंज करने के लिए, और वो चाहते थे कि यहाँ से निकल जाए। ये जो मूवमेंट थे इनको गाइड करने के लिए बहुत सारे फ्रीडम फाइटर्स थे, जैसे महात्मा गांधी, जवाहरलाल नेहरू, सुभाष चंद्र बोस, और बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग जिन्होंने हेल्प किया था ब्रिटिशर्स को यहाँ से भगाने के लिए। On the other hand, the assertions against national rulers were more localized and region specific. These struggles were focused on challenging the internal authority of princely states and demanding reforms and greater rights within the specific territories governed by local rulers. ये जो goals है, they were limited to bringing about changes in the governments and administration of the princely states rather than seeking complete independence from the British rule. जो local लोग थे वो चाहते थे, जो local pressure आ रहा था वो उनसे हटना चाहते थे, rather than actually gaining independence from British rule. Now, engagement with the government. In the national Indian movement, leaders engaged in direct negotiation and discussion with the British colonial administration at central and provincial levels. They represent demands for political reforms, representation, eventually complete independence from British rule. ये जो negotiation थे ये complex थे, इसमें बहुत सारे efforts हैं जो Indian leaders ने दिखाए to root out Britishers from India. कन्वर्सली जो assertion थे लोकल रूलर्स में, इसमें डायरेक्ट एंगेजमेंट था रूरल्स एंड द एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन विद इन द प्रिंसली स्टेट्स। उनकी डिमांड थी लोकल लेवल के ऊपर, उनकी नीड थी कि जो नेगोशिएशन थी वो लेस थी, पर इनकी नीड थी कि जो लोकल रूलर्स हैं वो उन्हें डोमिनेट ना कर, जो अनजस्ट वे में वो लोग टैक्स लेवी करते थे, मिसबिहेव करते थे, उसके अगेंस्ट वो लोग आवाज उठा रहे थे। degree of autonomy, British colonial rule was centralized and it was governed by foreign power from Britain. जो इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट था वो इस चीज को डिसमेंटल करना चाहता था और चाहता था पूरा इंडिया इनके अगेंस्ट खड़ा हुआ, ब्रिटिश डोमिनेशन से के क्लच से बाहर आ जाए. The struggle aimed to unite the entire Indian population under a single national identity and government structure. While if we talk of the princely state, they had varying degrees of autonomy under the British crown. ये भी ब्रिटिश क्राउन के अंडर था बट ये लोकली चल रहा था. Some princely states enjoyed considerable internal sovereignty while with their own rulers and administrations. Others had British residents or advisors who exercised significant influence over their affairs. The assertions against the local rulers sought to challenge the internal authority of the princely states, aiming for greater autonomy and self-governance within the existing princely state system rather than seeking complete independence from the British. जो assertions हुए थे ना लोकल रूलर से, वो चाहते थे कि ये चीज जो लोकल लेवल पे चीजें सही हो जाए. बट इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट जो एक अपसर्ज मूवमेंट था, वो ये चाहता था कि ये ब्रिटिशर्स यहाँ से चले जाएं. इन दोनों मूवमेंट का एक इंटरकनेक्टेडनेस था. क्या था? बिकॉज इनका मेजर वो था, इनका था मेजर एम क्या था? इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट प्रोवाइडेड द ओवर arcing framework for fighting, right? They wanted that we should fight against the colonial rule, while local assertion चाहते थे कि regional struggles जो हैं, reforms हैं, वो सही हो जाए in the princely state. Together, these movements shaped the course of Indian path towards independence, and finally, we got the independence in 1947. Let's talk of a movement that happened in Uttar Pradesh, that was the चौरी चारा मूवमेंट. ये जो मूवमेंट था ये कब हुआ था? जब नॉन कॉपरेशन मूवमेंट स्टार्ट हुआ था गांधी जी का 1922 में. गांधी जी सिर्फ एक पॉलिसी पे काम करते थे, नॉन वायलेंस पे. यहाँ पर एक पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट चल रहा था, ऑल ऑफ अ सडन लोग भड़क जाते हैं और एक लिकर शॉप को वो खड़े होते हैं एंड दे शो देयर डिसएग्रीमेंट विद द ब्रिटिश रूलर व्हाइल दे स्टैंडिंग आउटसाइड लिकर शॉप. यहाँ पे चीजें बहुत खराब हो जाती है, टेंशन बढ़ जाती है, प्रोटेस्टर्स एकदम भड़क जाते हैं और वो क्या करते हैं, जब टेंशन बढ़ जाती है, इतना वायलेंस हो जाता है, जो प्रोटेस्टर होता है ना, वो पुलिस स्टेशन को आग लगाते हैं, कुछ पुलिस ऑफिसर जल के मर जाते हैं. इसके वजह से महात्मा गांधी बहुत अपसेट हो जाते हैं, बिकॉज वो बिल्कुल भी किसी की जान पर नहीं खेलना चाहते थे. वो चाहते थे कि जो भी मूवमेंट हो वो नॉन वायलेंस के बेसिस पर हो. तो ही फेल्ट वेरी अपसेट अबाउट व्हाट हैपेंड इन चौरी चारा एंड ही बेसिकली he wanted to quit. So he strongly believed in non-violence as the heart of the national struggle. So what he did was, he was seeing this violence being used, so he was very upset. He decided to stop the non-cooperation movement for a while. It was his way to show that violence had no place in fight for freedom. He wanted people to remember that the strength of the movement lay in peaceful and non-violent struggle. So चौरी चारा जो था वो एक टर्निंग पॉइंट था, जिसमें गांधी जी ने थोड़ा सा पॉज लिया था लोगों को ये समझाने के लिए कि वायलेंस की कोई जगह नहीं है. फिर किसान मूवमेंट आया, जो कि बाबा रामचंद्र ने स्टार्ट किया उत्तर प्रदेश में 1920 के अंदर. एक इंपॉर्टेंट मूवमेंट हुआ था, उसे कहते थे किसान मूवमेंट, जो बाबा रामचंद्र ने स्टार्ट किया था. ये जो मूवमेंट था ये अवध रीजन में हुआ था एंड इसमें जो बाबा रामचंद्र थे एक लीडर थे. इन्होंने हेल्प किया था सोशल और पॉलिटिकल मैटर्स में. इनका बेसिक मेन काम ये था, ये फार्मर्स की हेल्प करना चाहते थे जो बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम से डील कर रहे थे. क्या प्रॉब्लम थी उनको? कि लैंड रेवेन्यू पॉलिसी बहुत खराब थी, अनजस्ट टैक्स लगे हुए थे उनके ऊपर, लोकल लैंडलॉर्ड ने लगाए हुए थे और ब्रिटिश रूलर ने. इस रीजन के अंदर से फार्मर्स बहुत स्ट्रगल कर रहे थे, उनको बहुत सारा पैसा देना पड़ता था एज रेवेन्यू. इसके वजह से वो हमेशा गरीबी में ही रहते थे, कर्जों में ही रहते. डेट मतलब कर्जे. तो इसके थ्रू बाबा रामदेव ने इनकी जो प्रॉब्लम्स हैं वो सॉल्व की थी. वो चाहते थे कि गवर्नमेंट जो है वो लैंड रेवेन्यू को हटाए, फार्मर्स को अच्छे से ट्रीट करे, उनकी पॉलिसीज को बेटर बनाए और हेल्पफुल रहे. तो बाबा रामचंद्र एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करते हैं इस मिशन में. वो इन्होंने इनकरेज किया फार्मर्स को कि वो अनफेयर प्रैक्टिस के अगेंस्ट खड़े हों और वायलेंस ना यूज करके, उन्होंने कहा नॉन वायलेंट प्रोटेस्ट करें, स्ट्राइक्स करें जहाँ पे फार्मर्स सफर करे थे. तो किसान मूवमेंट बिकेम अ वे इन द वे फार्मर्स हैड वॉइस्ड देयर कंसर्न एंड they fought against the injustice done against them. Baba Ramchand through peaceful means became a strong advocate for the rights of farmers in Uttar Pradesh during this crucial period. फिर बलिया में एक इंसिडेंट हुआ था which we are going to discuss in this paragraph. Launch of Quit India movement on 8 August 1942 led to many noteworthy events at Balia district of Uttar Pradesh. All the schools were closed on 12th August. Students took out a procession demanding the closure of the courts, which led to lathi charge by 100 armed constables. The Bilthara railway station was attacked on 13th August, and the entire building with its machinery. On 16th August, the Rashtra Treasury was attacked, and on the following days, the Bairia police station, it came under the control of the freedom fighters. So this was also happening there. So having wielded control of the administration and the machinery, जो 20th August में लोगों ने डिक्लेयर किया, चिट्टू पांडे जो अपने लीडर को, उसने क्या किया, दिस विक्ट्री वाज वेरी शॉर्ट लिव्ड, बट द गवर्नमेंट रिटेलिएटेड विद फेरोसिटी against the struggle that was started by Mr. Chittu Pandey. So then came the Quit India movement. Quit India movement क्या था? It was a collective effort. एक collective effort था जिन्होंने लोगों को अलग अलग राज्य से, जैसे राजस्थान, कर्नाटका को ना कॉल किया. Everybody started रेजिंग द वॉइस फॉर फ्रीडम. इन राजस्थान, जहाँ पे महाराजा रूल करते थे, लोगों ने इस क्विट इंडिया मूवमेंट को ज्वाइन किया विद देयर ओन स्पेशल वे. कई लोगों ने खेजड़ी मूवमेंट जो राजस्थान में हुआ था उसको ज्वाइन किया, और इन लोगों का एक यूनिक मेथड था ब्रिटिशर्स के अगेंस्ट वॉइस को रेज करने का. दे स्टार्टेड आस्किंग फॉर द ब्रिटिशर्स टू क्विट इंडिया. सिमिलरली कर्नाटक के अंदर लोगों ने ब्रिटिशर्स के अगेंस्ट आवाज उठाई, एंड दे वांटेड इंडिया टू हैव देयर ओन गवर्नमेंट with Britishers having no impact over India, and they wanted Britishers to quit India. So there was another movement that was raised in Khejri region in Rajasthan in 1917. So in 1917 in Rajasthan, something important happened in the Khejri, through the Khejri movement, because this happened in a village named as Khejrali. ये जो movement था, इसके अंदर people were standing against the unfair actions of landlords and the money lenders in the region who were making life very hard for farmers. So people were very disappointed because life for farmers was very difficult. The landlords, they were very harsh. They used to exploit the farmers. उनसे बहुत ज़्यादा interest लेते थे loans में, और उनको deep trouble और debts में. So they were always into debt and poverty. Debt होता है कर्जे, poverty होता है गरीबी. This unfair treatment जो था, इसके वजह से बहुत suffering हुई, और farming community ने बहुत सफर किया. इसको अपोज करने के लिए वहां पे एक लेडी थी, उसका नाम था अमृता देवी. शी डिसाइडेड दैट शी शुड टेक अ स्टैंड. उसने प्रोटेस्ट किया कि आप खेजड़ी ट्रीज को नहीं काटेंगे, बिकॉज ये लोकल एस्थेटिक वैल्यू को तो इम्प्रूव करती है, ये लोगों को एक लाइवलीहुड भी देती है. सो शी वाज अगेंस्ट कटिंग ऑफ द खेजड़ी ट्रीज बिकॉज द ट्रीज वर लाइक अ लाइफलाइन फॉर दैट कम्युनिटी. So the villagers, they were so determined to protect these trees that they were ready to give their lives. So they were ready to sacrifice their life for them. This act, Khejri, symbolized their resistance against exploitation and their strong belief in their right to natural resources of their region. Now, Britishers who were actually exploiting Indians for a longer period of time never thought that the Indians will stand and oppose their exploitative policies. So it wasn't just about the trees, it was about standing up against unfairness and fighting for what was rightfully theirs. So ये जो movement था, बेसिकली इससे एनवायरनमेंट का तो ध्यान हो ही रहा था, बट इससे ये भी पता चलता था कि इंडियंस ने अपनी आवाज़ उठाई है कि उनको एक फेयर ट्रीटमेंट मिले, एंड दे did not really want to be curbed by the people who came from outside and were curbing their ways. So enough was enough at that point of time, and they really want Britishers to quit India and leave India. A similar kind of movement happened in Rajasthan, which was Rajasthan Prajamandal movement, which happened in the year 1940. अब 1940 में ये जो था एक movement था जो राजस्थान में हुआ था. बेसिकली इसके अंदर जो महाराजा थे उनके ऑटोक्रेटिक रूल को चैलेंज किया गया, और कोशिश की गई कि ये जो डोमिनेंस है ये खत्म हो, राइट. सो ड्यूरिंग दिस टाइम ऑफ प्रिंसली स्टेज, महाराजास दे हेल्ड इमेंस पावर एंड अथॉरिटी ओवर द टेरिटरीज. what made it challenging was that the power wasn't balanced. There was no proper representation of any process, like there was no democracy, so there was nobody to actually challenge why was this being levied on people. So people had no say in it. तो लोगों को बहुत प्रॉब्लम था बिकॉज लोग बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सप्लॉइट हो रहे थे. तो राजस्थान राजस्थान प्रजा मंडल मूवमेंट जो था एक रिस्पॉन्स था ऐसी काइंड ऑफ सिचुएशन में। इसमें क्या क्या मेजर की थिंग्स है? वन वॉज इट वॉज मोर पॉलिटिकल रिप्रेजेंटेशन, मीनिंग दैट पीपल वॉन्टेड टू से इन अ डिसीजन दैट अफेक्टेड देयर लाइफ, दे वॉन्टेड टू हैव अ से इन द डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेस, राइट। सेकेंड वॉज ये जो मूवमेंट था ये एम करता था कि लोगों का के लोगों की एक वॉइस कलेक्टिवली रेज हो, and whatever is happening people should be answerable, the top notch should be answerable to whatever they were doing so that exploitation can be curbed. Lastly, it emphasized the importance of including the voices of public in decision making process. So people overall were not happy with the policies, they were not happy of the exploitation, they wanted their own say in the administration. In a sense, the movement sought to transform the princely state into government that truly represented the people and responded to their needs and aspirations. It was not about challenging the Maharaja rule, it was about making the government more responsive and inclusive. तो लोग एक डेमोक्रेसी चाहते थे जो उन्होंने इस मूवमेंट से एग्जिबिट किया. राजस्थान Prajamandal movement with its demand for democracy and accountable governments played a crucial role in shaping the political landscape of Rajasthan. It marked the step towards a more representative and people-centric form of government. So this is very important because they were not actually challenging the British government to go away. They were challenging the internal government. They wanted a people-centric form of government, setting the stage for broader changes in the princely states. Then there was another movement, that was the Kanpura movement in Karnataka, because in Karnataka this movement was a powerful tale portrayed in Raja Rao's novel Kanthapura. Now this narrative drew inspiration from the Gandhian principle of non-violence, and if you see, if we have talked about Baba Ramdev, we have talked about Mahatma Gandhi, we are now talking about Raja Ram Rao, all of them believed in non-violence. Nobody wanted to fight by using violence in it. This narrative, it drew inspiration from the Gandhian principle of non-violence and civil disobedience, providing a vivid portrayal of Indian national movement and active involvement of rural communities. Kantapura movement, as depicted in the novel, stands as a representation of spirit of resistance against the colonial rule within the context of a rural village. The protagonist, the main character named Murthy, takes the lead as the villagers of Kantapura actively participate in the Indian national movement. Their encouragement takes in the form of non-violent protests, boycotts, and civil disobedience. It was all influenced by the policy that were followed by Mahatma Gandhi. Within the pages of the novel, the movement in Kantapura reflects the broader struggle of rural India against the oppressive rule of British colonizer. ये जो है इसमें इस प्ले के अंदर ना क्या बताया गया, जो यूनिटी लोगों ने दिखाई, जो रिसिलियंस लोगों ने दिखाया to take away the country's freedom, to help in country's freedom, and ask the Britishers to go away. The villagers, they were under Murthy's guidance, and they Murthy was the one who fueled in a lot of energy to have that quest of independence. The Kantapura movement, while fictional, it serves as a poignant mirror reflecting the unwavering determination of rural community to stand up against the colonial oppression. Through the lens of this novels, readers can gain insight into the grassroots level, what was actually affecting Indian fight for freedom and illustrating the profound impact on Gandhian principle. So all these movements which we have studied, be it the Quit India movement, be it the movement in Rajasthan, the movement in UP, all the movements which we have studied were basically based on one factor, was to ask the Britishers to quit India and to help India realize its internal potential and its value in terms of resources, and to have a unified government with every individual given a right to choose their leader and to have a say with it. So this is all about the chapter. Let's come to the question answers. Let's come to take the correct answer. The grievances against both colonial and local leaders included exploitation of natural resources, excessive representation and participation of India. Option 2. Question number 2. The unity in the struggle against colonial and local rulers was based on shared grievances and aspiration for justice, because everybody wanted justice, which was missing. The primary goal of local assertions against princely state was to challenge British rule, no; seek complete independence from foreign domination, no; demand reforms and greater rights within princely state, yes. In which state did Khejri movement take place in 1917, led by courageous woman Amrita Devi? We recently read it, that is in Rajasthan. The Rajasthan Prajamandal emerged in 1940 to challenge the autocratic rule of the Maharaja, in which state, that's again Rajasthan. What was the primary goal of Kishan movement? The primary goal of Kishan movement in Uttar Pradesh was to basically reduce the land revenue and address the farmers' grievances. Then, during which national movement did Chauri Chara incident occur, resulting in Mahatma Gandhi's decision to suspend the movement temporarily? It was under the non-cooperation movement. Then let's come to true false. The primary focus of Indian national movement was to gain independence from British rule. That's true. The Indian national movement and the local assertions against local rulers had separate and unrelated goals. No, it had same rules. Both colonial and local rulers were responsible for implementing policies that were oppressive and exploitative. So both colonial and local rulers were responsible for they were the ones who were actually responsible for using policies that were oppressive, and people wanted to gain, they wanted they should not be exploited. The struggles against local rulers were primarily limited to specific economic reforms under the Prince states. No. Then the local assertions against princely states sought complete independence from the foreign rule. No, they wanted from the petty states. Then the local assertions against local rulers were primarily aimed at challenging the British colonial. It was not their primary main aim. The main aim was to get relief from the local rulers. Then the Chauri Chara incident was a non-violent protest that led to significant revolt. It was not a non-violent. It started as a non-violent reform, but it then became a violent reform. The Indian national movement sought to break free from foreign domination and regain control over their own land, resources, and governance. Then both colonial and local rulers faced discontent and resentment due to their exploitative policies and dash of the Indian and lack of say of Indian population. The third is the grievances against both colonial and local rulers included limited representation and participation of Indian in decision making process, leading to lack of representation in governance. The struggle against local rulers were more dash and focused on specific princely state. It was more internally focused, right? The local assertion sought to challenge the internal authority of the princely states. The sixth fill in the blank is the Chauri Chara incident during the dash movement during the non-cooperation movement resulted in a temporary suspension of the movement due to use of violence. The last is the Khejri movement in Rajasthan aimed to challenge oppressive practice of landlords and moneylenders, with villagers sacrificing their lives to protect the Khejri trees. Let's come to question answer. Question number 1. What were the common grievances faced by Indian population against both colonial and local rulers during the Indian national movement? The common grievance faced by the Indian population against colonial and local rulers was the exploitation. They were exploited a lot, they were levied a lot of taxes, and the policies were very oppressive. Then question number 2, how did the desire for self-governments and independence shape the Indian national movement, and what role did it play in the struggle against both colonial and local rulers? The desire for self-governments and independence was the major reason to have an independent country without the interference of the Britishers, because the policies were very oppressive. The government, the Britishers were very bossy, and they did not allow any Indian to have any say in government. So people wanted to have self government and independent government so that they can have their own say. So the struggles that were initiated at local level and against the Britishers helped people to collectively and unitedly stand against the Britishers. Question number 3. Explain the significance of unity among Indian people in their pursuit of justice and freedom during Indian national movement. The movements that were being done at the regional levels or at the national level help people stand in unity, because all these struggles had only one aim: to chuck out the Britishers from the country and help have their own government without any kind of oppression and exploitation. So all these movements which were held at national, regional level or national level were basically aimed at getting away from the oppression and the unjust treatment. So question number 4 says, how did the nature of struggles in Indian national governments differ from local assertions against princely states in terms of their geographic scope and objective? If we talk of nature of struggle, if we talk of the scope in the Indian national movement, it was basically they had a poncho and a hankering of getting away from the clutches of the Britishers, but the local assertions were basically asserting to have a government, state wherein there is complete independence from the princely state. So the local rulers were primarily limited to specific economic reforms within the princely state, right? So this is right. Okay. Now let's come to the next question. The next question is, what were the grievances of farmers in Uttar Pradesh during the Kishan movement, and how did Baba Ramchand mobilize them to address their concern? The farmers in Uttar Pradesh were struggling a lot because there was a lot of taxes that were imposed to them. Not only with the taxes, they were facing a lot of oppressive policies, because of which they were always in the cycle of debt and poverty. So Baba Ramchand helped them mobilize this issue, although he chose the method of non-violence, but he helped farmers to come out of these problems. Let's come to the question answer in detail. Discuss the interconnectedness between the Indian national movement and the assertion based against both colonial and local rulers. How did these struggles complement each other in broader fight for self-government, justice, and freedom? There were movements which were done on both regional and national level, like movements like Quit India movement, Khejri movement, Kisan movement. All these movements were the movements which had the main aim of getting away from the clutches of the Britishers. The movement that were conducted at a regional level helped people to come out of the oppressive policy of the people who were dominating them at the local levels. But all the movements had an interconnectedness which aimed at getting away from all the oppressive policies and finally fighting for self-government, justice, and freedom. Question number 2, discuss how the Indian national movement and the local struggle against princely states connected. This is connected because through both these movements, people had to express the same concern, that they really didn't want to have anybody on top of them who made them come into the cycle of debt and poverty. They wanted to have a self-government, they wanted to have justice, and they wanted to have freedom. How did the national movement influence the regional movement, and how did the regional movement contribute to the broader cause of India's independence? The national movement were the movements which inspired people to struggle at the regional level also, and because of the regional movement, finally everybody was involved in the bigger cause for national freedom. Question number 3, compare and contrast the nature of Chauri Chara incident and Khejri movement. How did these two events reflect different approaches of asserting against colonial and local leaders, and what was the respective implication on the Indian movement? If we talk of Chauri Chara movement, it was a movement started during non-cooperation movement which was led by Mahatma Gandhi. It was initially a peaceful protest which was being done by a large number of people showing disagreement against the British ruler, but slowly, steadily, the movement took a U-turn and tensions went up by the protesters. They had burned the police station, because of which a lot of police officers lost their life. So Mahatma Gandhi was really upset with this, and he backed out from this because he wanted to give people a point that he really did not want to have violence as a method of revolting. Then was the Kishan movement, which was initiated by Baba Ramchand in Uttar Pradesh. In this movement, he wanted to be a voice against the farmers who were dealing with a tough time, problems like land revenue policies and unjust taxes, which was imposed to them, making them difficult. And this was actually making people to have to pay a lot of money as land revenue. So the farmers were trapped in the cycle of debt and poverty. Through Baba Ramchand, people were able to come out of this. Let's come to the next question. The next question is, then is the Khejri movement, right? Let's talk about the Khejri movement. In Khejri movement in Rajasthan, explain the significance of Khejri movement in Rajasthan, highlighting the role of Amrita Devi and impact on environmental conservation and social justice. If we talk of Khejri movement, it was done in Rajasthan. So a lady really raised out her voice against the trees, which was in a village called Khejrali. She was against cutting down the Khejri trees, which was not only crucial for the local environment, but she knew that it was very vital for the villagers' livelihood. So she was determined, and this Khejri movement symbolized the resistance against exploitation and the strong belief of people to have their right to their natural resources. To that reason, so they stood up against the unfairness, and they fought for their own rights. So Amrita Devi proved a major role. She actually had a major role in fighting against the environmental conservation. Last question, describe the key demands and objective of Rajasthan Praja Mandal movement and its role in challenging the autocratic rule of Maharaja. So Rajasthan Praja Mandal movement was not directly, revolting against the Britishers. They were the ones who were against the Maharaja, who was basically having a lot of power and authority over the territory. So there was no elected representation or a democratic process through the Rajasthan Praja Mandal. It emerged as a response to this situation. People really wanted the political representation. They wanted to have the same decision in that affected life. So they revolted against it. Second, the movement aimed for an accountable administration, whereas those in power were answerable to the people. Lastly, it emphasized the importance of including the voice of people in effective decision making process. So this is about Rajasthan Praja Mandal movement. It was all about the chapter and the question answers. I hope you had good time learning. Happy learning.